Hello everybody, 6-Speed Dakota here, and we're back with another episode of the ATVs. And today's project, we're going to be changing the oil in my 2007 350 Wolverine. This guy right here. So, they all need an oil change at about this time anyway, so you kind of want to change your oil maybe about every 6 months or before you store them. So, it's been about 6 months since I changed it last, so may as well get started. So the first step you want to do is you want to get yourself, obviously, some oil and a filter. So what I got here is I got the correct filter and Royal Purple Max Cycle Performance Motorcycle and ATV oil. You have to use an ATV motorcycle oil because it has a special additives for the clutch inside there. So if you don't use that, you could end up ruining it. So first, the next thing you got to do is you got to warm it up till you touch this little casing here, and it should be fairly warm to the touch, which means that the oil inside is warm. Now you don't have to put it up on a ramp, but obviously for viewing purposes I will, so I'll go do that. Okay, so we're underneath the thing now, and there's this big hole here. There's this little hole here at the back of the skid plate. These are for the 450. These are interchangeable. On the 350 Wolverines, this hole right here is the one that you want to look at. And if you look through there, you see that hex head bolt there. That's your drain plug bolt. And then, gotta get out of here. And then your oil filter is right there. So directly underneath it's that hole there, and that's where the oil drains out. It's actually a very simple process. It's kind of like changing your oil on your car, except, well, there's a lot less oil. And your oil fill on the 350s is right on the side of the motor. You got your little dipstick. And right here on the side it says 2200 centimeters cubed, which is how much volume of oil it takes. So it basically takes about 2.5 quarts. So I guess now what we're going to do is I'm going to take it off the ramp, and we're going to get out underneath there and drain the oil. Okay, now what you're going to need is a deep socket, 14 millimeters. And what we're going to do is we're going to come, as you can see my wrench there, it's going to come from underneath the skid plate. And there it is. Break it loose to the drain pan underneath. Now this is a little bit of a tricky process. You got big hands. Now usually if you can't get it from up top, you can get it from, underneath. There's that plug. So make sure your engine's warm but not scalding hot, because trust me, this stuff's going to get all over your fingers. Now, this bolt on the 350 is quite long, so if you have to stick your socket on there and just use that kind of as a nut driver, then that's also a good idea. I'll loosen this. It's got a lot of threads on it, so just be patient. Alright, so once you feel it start to get loose, be ready to catch the thing, because the oil will go everywhere basically. Holy cow, how many threads are on this thing? It's almost out of the hole there. Oh, there we go. So now that I got it loose, what we're going to do is we're just going to pull it away very quickly and pull our hand away at the same time. So, there we go. And you can see down there that the oil is draining. So we'll just let that sit and drain for just a second, and we'll be back when it finishes. Okay, so now once your oil's finished draining, or pretty much finished draining, it's time to take the filter off. Now you see why it took me forever to get that plug out. There's like a million threads on there. Alright, so since the oil filter is quite small, it's best to have a pair of these oil filter pliers, considering that they work the best on small filters. Yeah, if you get a strap wrench or a small little cup end wrench that goes on there, that will work too. But basically, just like a cart, grab it and turn it. Should come right off, except this one makes even more of a mess because there's really nowhere for it to go. So make sure you got plenty of paper towel and brake cleaner or whatever handy to clean up all the oil that spills everywhere. The 350s are a lot more friendly, there we go, to changing the oil because, well, the oil filter's right there rather than being wedged in underneath there. And then the oil basically drizzles all down there. But I'll show you when we get there. So there's the oil pump housing there. So we're going to wipe off the gasket mating surface here. Then we're going to take our new filter. Now since it goes on sideways, can't really fill it with oil. So what I'm going to do is we're going to go over here using my handy dandy pumper. Just going to squirt a little bit of oil in there. We'll take it and we're going to lube this O-ring on the outside of the filter. This is crucial because the gasket here will basically weld itself on there if you don't use oil. So, same thing, just like changing your oil in your car, you just screw it on. Now because this is a smaller filter, you don't have to reef it on there real tight. But just get it on there reasonably hand tight. There we go. Pretty much as tight as you can with one hand, considering you can't really fit both in there. So that's it. Now it's time to put the drain plug back in. So rather than boring you putting that all the way back in, I'm just going to go throw it in. Okay, so now that we got our plug all the way in there, just going to take our ratchet here and snug it up. Now one thing I forgot to mention before I put the plug in there is that you should always change that gasket, that little copper O-ring on there. If you don't, it's not a huge deal, but really you should replace it. Just to, it's cheap insurance basically. So we'll pull the dipstick out, and there's the fill pot there. And we're going to need to grab our 3 quarts of our ATV oil. Now, Royal Purple obviously makes good stuff. You hear about them on TV all the time. They're a huge company, so they make really good oil. Another one that makes it is AMSOIL, is a good powersport oil company. Another good one is, of course, your factory Yamaha Lube you can use as well. It is a little bit more expensive, but it works very well once again. Another one that's popular is Motul, M-O-T-U-L, and that's quite common as well. I've seen that in a lot of power sport shops, that and the AMSOIL, but usually your Royal Purple you can get at your auto parts store is where I got this. And just another thing, during the month of April, Lordco Auto Parts is having its trade show. So if you live up here in Canada and you got a Lordco, that's a good thing to get there, because that oil was $18 and I got it for $11. So you do the math, it saved me a lot of money between 8 bottles of oil. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to top our oil off. Okay, so here goes. And just be careful. That is kind of cool, actually. It is kind of purple. I've never used Royal Purple before, I didn't know that. Now, usually most power sport oils are a little bit darker. The Yamaha Lube is a little bit lighter than the other stuff, but the Motul is actually very dark. And this is mainly because of the additives for the clutch, the wet clutches inside there. So, yeah, just be aware that this is quite dark, so you don't have to go change it when it looks dark, because this stuff is very, very expensive. I'm actually ordering another 8 bottles worth while their trade show is going on, while Lordco's trade show is going on, because it's just cheaper to get it that way. So in 6 months, I can change the oil again. But mainly, I just mainly do a summer oil change and then kind of a end of summer oil change. But you know, if you don't use your ATVs or your whatever in the wintertime, then it's best you change the oil before you store it, because you don't want to go ahead and start it up and have all that crap you had in your oil system basically flowing back through there again. You always want to change your oil before storing these things, never after. But I can make a video on that if there's sufficient interest. So leave a comment if you want me to make a video on how to store stuff. That might have to come later considering it's April now, but it's mainly the same thing as just regular preventative maintenance. So here goes the second one. I'm going to keep filling here rather than just keep babbling. So I'll be back when the second bottle worth is in. Alright, so now once you get your oil filled up, take your dipstick, stick it in there, and don't screw it in. Now pull it back out. Look on the tip. Strangely, there's really nothing on there actually. So I guess I'll have to put the extra half a bottle in. But that's how you check your oil. You don't run it all the way down in there like that and then pull it back out. Oh, I see a little bit now on there, but don't run it all the way in. Just like that, pull it out. So I'll add a little bit more and we'll start it up after she's full. Alright, so now you see on there that it's nice and full. I'm going to screw the top all the way. Make sure you screw that all the way down, or else it could end up blowing oil out the tube there. So once again, go underneath, make sure your drain plug is tight and your oil filter is tight, and then we're going to start it up. So just remember, when you start it up, make sure you listen for any odd noises it might be making, because that might indicate you have no oil pressure. So here we go. Fire it up. Uh-oh. A little cold. Alright, well, it sounds perfectly normal. I go underneath, I don't see anything leaking. So, oh, focus. Okay, well, that means you can shut it off and check the oil again. Alright, so when you dip the stick down in there, oops, there we go. That's nice and full. Then you just screw your dipstick back in and you're all done. That wasn't so hard now, was it? You just got to make sure you do that about every 6 months. Next, on to the 450s.